Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Sunday morning. Watching back that USC Notre Dame game, like what a performance from Marcus Freeman and this team. You have back to back to back to back primetime games against really good teams. It didn't go your way through those 3 game stretches, but for Marcus Freeman to get this team ready to play their best ball we've seen all year against a really good USC Trojans team, and for a young head coach of a program like Notre Dame, I was never out on Marcus Freeman. I am so in on what he can do with this program. You look at a really experienced coach in Mario Cristobal, loses against Georgia Tech. You think he would be able to galvanize his guys going on the road to UNC? Not really what you saw for what Marcus Freeman was able to do with this locker room. Really, really impressive. Excited to get into some big takeaways we had from that game. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys, and especially the Notre Dame fans. This is a team we've talked a lot about, done a lot of game breakdowns for. The Notre Dame fans have shown a ton of love. So if you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. More importantly, let us know in the comment section how you guys are feeling. Dill, going to kick this one off to you. Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame, get it done at home against USC. How we feeling?
And this is big for Freeman going forward and start rattling or not rattling off, but getting these bigger wins. And they had a couple last year. I mean, beating Clemson was obviously huge. And then to kind of, again, what you said, bounce back from a very tough start to this season. I thought against Ohio State, they should have won that game. I think there were some coaching mishaps that definitely played a big factor in that. I thought how they called that series right before Ohio State got the ball back and scored. I thought not running the ball 3 straight times last time I thought was weird. And then obviously the 10 men on the field, but to rally back. And then after that Louisville game, which was just like a poor performance, I'm kind of with you. That's like a huge thing you got to see from Marcus Freeman, because everything else he can do. He can recruit. The players love him. But just being able to manage like a schedule in the season, I think, again, for a young coach, that's kind of what you're looking for. And this is a big, big win, I think, in proving that.
And that's like for Marcus Freeman, before we get into kind of what we saw on the football field, like he's still, you don't see normally young coaches get the keys to a program like Notre Dame, like Marcus Freeman did. And you knew there were going to be some growing pains. You saw some last year. You've seen some this year too. But from what I'm seeing, you're starting to see Marcus Freeman figure it out, how to kind of run a program like Notre Dame. And I thought last night against USC really kind of symbolizes him maturing as a head coach. And like you said, like he is young, charismatic, a phenomenal football coach, recruiter, just has to kind of manage that program. And you're seeing Marcus Freeman really figure it out. Dill, to get into the actual football we saw last night, biggest takeaway has to be that defense and how good they were stopping Caleb Williams, making him uncomfortable 12 months ago. Like that was a complete opposite story.
Well, this secondary is just so good. I mean, they didn't give up anything easy. And you even were saying it all, like we were watching the game together last night, and you're like, nothing looks easy. Is this a Lincoln Riley problem? Why can't he scheme anything up? Well, it might just be that Notre Dame's flat out really, really tough in the secondary. And again, when you got a guy like Benjamin Morrison who you can stick on any wide receiver and really, really be competitive all night, and that includes Marvin Harrison Jr., that really does help what you're doing. In his emergence, I feel like it's been a big part of this team looking a little better on that side of the ball than they did last year. Or I should say a lot better, probably.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I was very critical of Lincoln Riley in this offense, and like what nothing they're doing is working, and it could have been just USC's got a lot of really good receivers. They're used to having those receivers create separation and create explosive plays. They just weren't able to do that last night against Notre Dame. And you look at USC's longest catch yesterday, 21 yards. I mean, this is the most explosive offense that we've seen routinely hitting those chunk plays. They had like 1 or 2 chunk plays all game, and then they had, 131-yard rush on that speed option. In terms of limiting the explosive play, which is kind of the key to stopping this USC offense, Notre Dame did a phenomenal job. Xavier Watts all over the field. Cam Hart. This secondary is really, really good. But, Dill, I thought my story to this game was that defensive line not only disrupt him and kind of putting Caleb Williams off the spot, which they kind of were able to do last year. They were also able to keep him in the pocket, limit him from extending those plays. That was the key to that game. And this Notre Dame defensive front has been really, really good to start this season.
I mean, they really beat the brakes off that USC offensive line.
Crushed it.
Yeah. Last year they did well against USC to an extent, but I wouldn't say they dominated that football game or really changed it completely. But yeah, you're right. I mean, some of those interceptions definitely had a lot to do with the pressure. I thought the linebackers were playing really well. They were, again, just handling Caleb Williams. He wasn't able to keep plays alive for 5 seconds and get downfield. They were able to get to him. They were able to finish him off, which again, that was the big thing last year. They just couldn't bring him down, and they let him out of the pocket constantly.
And going back to the coaching, that's I think, because that is your guys can win up front, but if you're not being disciplined in your rush lanes and letting Caleb Williams get outside the pocket, that kind of falls on the coaching staff. What they did, getting those guys ready for what Caleb Williams brings, it was a master class. Marcus Freeman said, it starts with us. We got to teach. He said in his press conference, we don't have insubordinate kids. They're going to listen to what we're telling them to do. And that's what you saw last night. I don't know. I'm just fired up for this Notre Dame program. You look at some of the numbers, 10 plus negative plays last night. USC was consistently operating at 3rd and long. 19 quarterback hurries. Howard Cross, Jean Baptiste, Riley Mills. I mean, they were just getting after him in multiple different ways. And then, Dale, the story of the game here, when you win the turnover battle 5-0, that is winning football, and that is exactly what Notre Dame was able to do.
Yeah, and then to flip over on the offensive side, they did kind of what we thought they were able to run the ball effectively. They hit their deep plays when they had their shots, and honestly, their offense didn't have much to do in a sense because the defense put them in great spots, and they were scoring on defense. It's just but their offense didn't make any mistakes. You look at that, a clean game from Sam Hartman. They weren't fumbling. They play like that, and they play really good defense, and they just get that type of play from Hartman where it's really solid. Again, something they didn't have last year. That it's a really dangerous Notre Dame team.
Yeah, and I don't even know if you'd ask Sam Hartman, how'd you think he played? I thought he missed some throws. He played solid, really solid. It really kind of falls on this Notre Dame defense and just smothering what USC can do. I really do when they do go after that deep ball, Sam Hartman can throw it and hit it, which is, again, something they're not used to seeing. And that's kind of the recipe. Notre Dame's got a lot of big-time games on their schedule in this second half, getting guys healthy. But if you can keep that recipe of really active up front, getting pressure on the quarterback, having a linebacker group that goes sideline to sideline, plays with their hair on fire, and a secondary that's sticky, on top of an offense that can run the football and go play action and hit the big play, that is the recipe of winning football. And if you're a Notre Dame fan, you're going into the bye, you're enjoying it for a couple hours, Marcus Freeman said. I mean, this is one of the most dangerous teams in the back half of the season. You can't tell me anything otherwise.
Yeah, and this is a team, the ACC schools, that are going to go be fighting for a playoff spot. And it's not to say Notre Dame's out, because they have a good enough schedule going forward where if they put together some really big games and some teams drop something, I mean, Notre Dame's going to have a tough schedule. They're going to look like a really good team. And if they close it out really well, again, they might. I mean, it's certainly an outside shot probably with the 2 losses, but they have a shot. And again, to me, it's a lot of building on into next year. You see the recruiting really kind of revving up a little bit. A lot of these guys might be back next year too. I think that's, again, this is just put together a solid momentum going in and just keep the ball kind of rolling. Again, Kelly had it going. Marcus Freeman keeping it going, it seems like.
Is it crazy that Marcus Freeman has a higher ceiling than Brian? Because Brian Kelly, he is what he is. He's a good football coach, never lost the games he shouldn't have lost. And Notre Dame was always a top 10 team, but there was a ceiling. He was bumping his head, and that's why he left to LSU. Is Marcus Freeman better suited to kind of go through that ceiling than what Brian Kelly was at Notre Dame? That we'll see, but I think there's certainly a possibility. They'll circling back to Notre Dame playoff chances, and I get it, outside chance. You're about to see absolute chaos in the back half of the season. The Pac-12 is going to
be good. There's just not no teams. There's not 4 Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama that are 3 teams that are all going to go undefeated. I just don't see that right now. Maybe Georgia will, but the Big Ten's probably going to beat itself up a little bit. The Pac-12 obviously
certainly going to. Big 12 might beat each other up with Texas and Oklahoma. You're going to see a lot of chaos. And again, I'm not saying Notre Dame's a lock to get in if they run the table. That being said, they're going to put themselves in that conversation of being one of the top teams in the country. Because you look, I mean, the Louisville game was the only stinker that you saw from Notre Dame. they probably should have beat Ohio State at home. And again, that's a top 5 team in the country. Really, really exciting to be a Notre Dame fan. I get there's been some growing pains along the way for the first season and a half of the Marcus Freeman era. But, man, you're starting to see him figure it out as a head coach, which he needed to do. And you're starting to see this team play with a lot of confidence. Really excited. Going to a bye week, get healthy, get some of those wide receivers back half of the schedule. I really do think this is one of the more dangerous Notre Dame teams. I'm thrilled for Notre Dame. Love Marcus Freeman. And one thing, I know I'm rambling a little bit. You go to the press conference, you want to hear stark difference between what Lincoln Riley and Marcus Freeman have been doing. And this is not a really shot at USC. It's just what I noticed. I'm frustrated, and I'll talk about it later in the week. Lincoln Riley beat Arizona in overtime in a game where they played horribly. And he pretty much just got up there and said, yeah, it's hard to win football games in this league, and we did a really good job tonight. When it was like so clearly they played bad football. Marcus Freeman just won 48-20 against the top 10 team in the country. He's up there saying, yeah, we played really good football. A lot of teachable moments. We're still trying to get better. Like, he's not complacent with this. He's going to continue to grind and try to get this team right. I love that attitude. You look at all the best coaches in the country, that's what it is. They're never complacent. They're always looking for opportunities to coach and get better. That's what Marcus Freeman is. I think Notre Dame has a good one. Really excited for the back half of the season. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If you do enjoy the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.